Why you look so serious? Yeah, you, Raider. Why you looking so serious?
I always look serious.
You look like somebody stole his lunch money.
Someone did today, actually. Kind of upset.
Send me a cash app. I'll hook you up.
He's 6 years old, so like I can't be too mad about it.
My 11-year-old does that.
How are you, though?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
All right, I believe we've got everybody here. How's everybody doing?
We're good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Doing
Wonderful.
well. So I'm new, guys. My name is Will. I'm going to be here from HR Ops today. Joining us today is Emma from UKG. She's going to be sharing her screen today and just discussing the data views and reporting functionality here and for UKG for you guys to see. We'll be recording this session. That way we have it available for you to reference at a later date. I'll be here taking notes on any requests or follow-ups that we need to ensure that you get the information to be successful in your workplaces. So without any further ado, we'll hand it over to Emma.
All right, thank you. So today, going to go through data views that you guys currently have available to you and reports as well. If at any point I am showing you something that you feel you don't have access to, please let me know or William know by putting that in the chat, and we can record that and make sure that we get you guys adjusted if we need to. As I'm going through this as well, if there are reports that you guys think of or things that you need to be able to report on that you're not seeing, let me know about that as well. I know we've talked about a few already, as far as, overtime, meal deductions and stuff like that. So we'll review some of that today as well. But if there's anything else you all feel that you need, go ahead and call that out on this call and we can kind of talk about that. So before I dive into that, is there anything that anybody wants to review specifically? I see Brian has his hand up.
I just had a quick question, and I don't know if this is capable with UKG or not. is there a way to have kind of like, if we're having an employee schedule in there and say, and let's say that they're working the first 3 days of their schedule and they're over hours, we know that they won't get their overtime until they're over 40. But is there a way to, I don't know if it's done through a report or put an alert in there that that person is trending towards overtime so that we can maybe possibly make some changes so that they don't hit overtime or reduce it? Is that possible?
Yes, it is possible. So there are two options, and they're both that you mentioned. One, a report. Two, um, we do have notifications available for employees approaching overtime. Um, so we can turn that notification on for you guys. I can also put together a report that would help us identify, you know, overtime hours for employee for the current pay period, which we do have that already, and I can walk us through that. So that would be an option for you to kind of filter by, anybody that's greater than or equal to, 30 hours or something along those lines, whichever makes most sense for you guys. So we can start off with looking at that overtime report. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So your data views and reports are going to be housed in your main menu here over on the left-hand side. And then you've got your data view library and your report library. So for now, we're going to go into the data view library. And then under the timekeeping section here, there is overtime employee. So if I click into this, giving you your hours that each employee has for overtime. I have it set up to exclude employees that don't have any overtime hours. So that way we're not, kind of bogging down the report with data that's, not necessary. Um, and then I've got a column for double time hours as well, if that is needed. So from here, we can adjust the filter to um, sort a specific way. So if it's better to have, to, there we go. Um, if it's better to have it sorted so that your highest numbers are at the top, and that way you can just easily pop in here and see who is approaching overtime for the specified time period. So with that being said, does it make most sense for you guys to look at this on a weekly basis and not a pay period basis?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So let me see if I can make this edit here real quick. Okay. So I've changed this data view to default to the current week for your time frame. So that way you're always, coming in here looking at the current week and not having to adjust that when you come in. So is this something that you guys feel would be useful to kind of achieve, um, looking at your overtime hours that the employee currently has?
You all can use the chat room too if you want. If you don't want to go off mic, feel free to use the chat room to give Emma some feedback. And Emma, I'm not sure since you're sharing screen, but you do have one hand up from Taylor Ramsey.
Okay, Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question that arose in my mind when we were talking about how we can monitor overtime. There's no possible way to prevent an employee from punching in or creating an alert for when an employee punches in at, like, let's say a 55-hour mark. Because once an employee hits 55 hours for us, specifically if they're a driver, in my opinion, they shouldn't work for us that day because that's getting us way too close to our 60 hours of service for the week. Didn't know if there's any possibility that we could edit and the clock in could be adjusted due to the hours that the employees work that week.
So the scenario would be we wouldn't even want to allow them to punch in if they hit that 55-hour threshold.
Yes, ma'am. And this may be just something that I would prefer, but I'm not sure how the rest of the group feels, but just didn't know if that was capable or not.
Right now, I don't believe that is a functionality where we can restrict the punch based on the hours that they currently have for the week. Um, but in similar to what we have in front of us here, we can create a data view that would allow you to, quickly check on a weekly basis, what their current hours are. So I can pull that together if that would be useful.
I think we have Michael also has a hand raised.
Yes, I was curious about the being able to see total hours worked, current total hours worked in this report as well. I know our team likes to look at, who is at 22 hours right now. Can I schedule them for 2 more days? As well as with our California employees, with them approaching overtime at 8 hours a day, or after that 8 hours daily, is there a way to set this report up to pull those hours to the side? Because they don't work off 40 hours OT. It's 8-hour OT for California.
So on a daily basis, you want to see those overtime hours, or if they're approaching the 8-hour mark?
Yes, for the California employees, but having an idea of where our employees are on a daily basis. Am I at 20 hours on Wednesday? Am I at 14 hours? That allows our managers to schedule a little bit better to keep these people under 40 for the week.
Okay. Yeah, so I think what I can do is set up a report that is similar to this one here, but have it be their regular hours, or basically any hours that would count towards them achieving that overtime, um, whether that be PTO as well or something along those lines.
And team, please speak up if you have questions. This is a great opportunity since you've been using the system, and great opportunity for you to discuss some of the pain points that you've been experiencing, or any questions. I know, Michael, you had a second question about the reports not in your library, so I think that would be great to cover, Emma. And then the other thing, team, is correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got 2 different pay structures within the divisions, right? So while we want to monitor in one division that we don't have employees going on overtime, we also want to monitor those that have went over overtime, but those that has hours, to avoid giving the true up hours that we want to maybe move a shift to because they haven't worked enough, right? Somebody weigh in. Michael, weigh in.
I'll help you, Brian. That is definitely an accurate statement.
Thank you, Betty.
Yeah, so I sorry, let me lower my hand. So yeah, that's what I was going to say, is just to tack on to what Michael Baker was saying, is essentially what would be really helpful from this report and how we use it in the field is we're looking for a trend report. So like an overtime trend report, you want to highlight those that are approaching overtime. And what that would be based on is a snapshot of current hours worked so far this week, and then future scheduled hours. So for example, if it's Wednesday and they've already worked 30 hours and they still have Thursday, Friday to work, they would flag as red and being at risk for overtime. The other piece of it would be if they're at if we could create rules to the opposite side that would say, for example, they're at 20 hours and they only have one more day scheduled, which shows that they're being underutilized by 10 hours. It would be good if we could create some kind of reporting that would reflect that, and that would satisfy the need that Brian McIntosh is talking about, as far as some people we want to make sure we're using the full 40, and others we want to look at it and make sure we're not going to go over the 40. So something that would create flags or identify people that were at risk for overtime based on current hours and then future scheduled hours. It would highlight them. So that way that manager would know, hey, I need to go and find someone to cover his Friday shift because he doesn't have the hours available. So it would be, hey, you get Friday off and I'm going to find somebody that only has 20 hours that I can give that extra day to bring them up to the 40 and fully utilize that driver's hours. Does that make sense?
It does. So what I can do is add a column that is the employee's scheduled hours. So you would have their hours that have currently been worked and then the hours that they are actually scheduled for this week, side by side. Would that be beneficial?
Team, would that be helpful for you? I would say yes. So they could see their scheduled hours versus total hours worked so far.
Yeah, and then other permissions I've seen is that like if you had it that if an employee hits 35 hours, they hit the potential overtime flag, and then it'll tell you how many hours they have remaining for their scheduled work week.
Okay, let me I'm trying to pull this together really quickly so that way we can view this together.
Michael, if you'd like, you can leave your question in the chat. That way we can have a running list of questions to run down. So we can just keep up with everybody's questions in order.
Okay, this is kind of adding on to what we're asking. Can we get a report or added to this report of how many days in a row these employees are working, or how many days worked? We're not allowed to have anybody work 7 days in a row, period.
Mhm.
So Thursday, Friday, Saturday is 1 week, that's fine. But then if they get scheduled Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the following week, that's a flag. Is there any
Right.
way to create a report that flags that? That way we can stay in compliance with our clients?
Yeah, so I've actually spoken with Jordan and Amanda on this as well. We don't have anything that is like plain and simple tracking how many days in a row that they've worked. I've put together a report that could be utilized, but it's still not exactly what you guys are looking for.
Okay.
So I just wanted to add that when you guys purchased UKG timekeeping, it also came with analytics. And an analytics consultant is actually going to start working with Jordan and Amanda in the next week or so. That would provide us different reporting capabilities other than what we have standard here. So I'm sure that they will bring that up to them and see if we can make that happen with the analytics.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. All right, so I'm going to work on getting the employee hours worked versus scheduled hours set up. What other reports outside of being able to see who is approaching overtime, seeing the employees' overtime hours, and then the hours worked versus scheduled? What else would you guys like to see? Okay. If there's nothing specific, then I'll just kind of go through some more of these that I think would be helpful for you guys. So I have showed this before, but I just want to show it again because I feel like we get new people on these calls. So I apologize if, if you've been on previous calls and have seen this already. But one thing that I just wanted to call out, on this pay period review, we actually do have the total scheduled hours versus the total actual hours um, on here already. What I would like to do is have this in a separate data view that doesn't have the missed in and out punch, and then also so we can default it to the current week. But just so you can see, this is similar to what we would be looking at on that other data view that I will create. Um, but this is here for you guys now in the meantime until I get that created. And the other thing I just wanted to call out about this one too is it's really good to help you guys get an understanding of what's going on with your employees' time cards. So I know that I believe most of you are asked to kind of review this on a daily basis. So you can view it for the current pay period overall. You can view it for your previous pay period as well as we're closing out time cards for the pay period. So you'll have that. And then on a daily basis, if you want to, get into the habit of doing yesterday, coming in here and changing your date range to yesterday, so that way you can, look at time cards yesterday that have an excused absence or have a missed punch, that sort of thing. And it also gives you a look into, what hours were worked yesterday for these employees as well. Um, so I think this one could play to your guys' benefit too. So definitely make sure that you have access to this one um, in your data view library and get familiarized with this if you have not yet. Other thing that I want to talk about here is you can actually approve your employees' time cards from this data view as well instead of having to go into the time card. So let's say I've reviewed this, everybody's time card is clean, looks good. I can go ahead and select all. And then with my approval button here, you can approve the time card. And it will approve the time card for whatever date frame, or I'm sorry, time frame that you have selected. So if I were to hit approve time card here, it would approve all of these employees' time cards for yesterday.
And Emma, we do have a hand up from Nathan, just to let you know.
Yeah, not so much on time cards, but on attendance points. I don't know if anybody else has got, if you guys are having problems finding attendance points and keeping track for like a 90-day period. Where do we find that info?
Yeah, so for attendance, what you would be able to do here is same thing. You can actually access attendance functions from data views as well. So actually, let's go. If you select your employees and right click and then you have your more actions, you can view the attendance details for these employees. Looks like some of them need to have the rules applied, as maybe they haven't had any attendance infractions yet. But that's the easiest way to go through and view employee by employee what is going on here. And you can change your date range to the last 90 days. And then every occurrence that they've had from the last 90 days would show. If you want it in more of a data view format, so that way we can actually, you can get a snapshot of, what all of your employees' current balances are. Um, we can get that set up as well. So would we want the attendance balance data view?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. That's something we had previously. So I'm sure a lot of the other site leaders would like something like that as well.
Okay. All right, we will get that added. Just making a note here. Okay. All right, I know we have some other hands up. Brian.
Yeah, just a quick question on piggyback on attendance. So when I have somebody that calls out, I can go in and I add the pay code as absent, and then I can add the comment, and it gives me the option if they called in less than 2 hours or they called in more than 2 hours. My
Mhm.
question I have is the other option that we have is a no call, no show. So if I don't enter either of those and just put them in as an absent, is that an automatic default that they're going to be awarded a no call, no show, or does that need to be an option that's added?
I am just pulling up your attendance events configuration because I can't remember off the top of my head what we have for no call, no show. So at the moment, as far as absence goes, I'm really only seeing events for call in less than 2 hours and call in more than 2 hours. So do we need to have the no call, no show event added?
Yes,
Okay. And how many points are associated with a no call, no show?
that'd be 2 points.
Okay.
And then also, do we have an attendance event for late or tardy, more than 15 minutes?
Yes, we do. So the right now what I have set up, and this is based on conversations with Jordan and Amanda. So if anything needs to be adjusted, we should talk about that. But we have a late in from 11 minutes to 60 minutes. That is just simply generated by the late in exception that would be automated on their time card. And that is based on their schedule as well. Um, we also have late in 61 to 119 minutes, and then a late in that is 2 hours or more late. Um, and those are triggered by the comment on the exception. So you would right click on the punch for that day and add a comment of whether it's late in 61 to 119 or if it was 2 hours or more. Would it be helpful to see that on the time card real quick for everybody?
Yeah, that'd be good, Emma.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you.
Okay. All right, so let's use them as our guinea pig. I'm not going to save anything since I am in the production system. But let me see. Well, that's maybe not a good example because they don't have a schedule on these days. Let's look at previous. Okay. Yeah, so that is one thing I want to call out for employees, attendance events to work the way that we're expecting them to, the employee will have to have a schedule assigned to them. So here's a good one. All right, so this red icon here is an exception identifier that is telling us that they are late in um, based on their schedule. So if we right click on this punch and then add a comment, you can add the comment here of, whether it's late in 10 to 60 minutes, 61 to 119, or 120 minutes or more. So you would just add that comment to this and then hit apply, and then that's what would trigger the attendance points. And then it would be the same thing for early outs as well. So if I'm out early, right click on that out punch, add a comment, and you've got your early out 10 to 60 minutes and then early out more than an hour.
We got two more hands up, one from Brian, I think, who was first, and then Felicia next.
I don't know if this was something that was discussed, but would be really helpful for us too, is that per the attendance policy, employees are allowed to call out of shifts 3 times a year, provided they can use their PTO and you provide a doctor's note. Is there a way to track that in the system? Like if they're at their 3, that won't allow you to do that, or have a report that shows where they stand on their sick time call outs? Is that something we can do?
Yeah, that's something that we could track. So it would be based on a year's time frame. And is that calendar year, or is that, more of a rolling year
Rolling.
from the first?
That'll be rolling, Emma.
Okay. And that was a scenario where they're scheduled to work, but they're calling in and using a sick or vacation day. And we want to track when they do that for 3 times, right?
Yeah, so the process would be is they would have to submit a PTO day, and then they would have to come in. When they come back in, they would provide a doctor's note, and then we can approve that PTO. So I don't know how you would distinguish it between a PTO day and versus a sick day call out.
Sorry, let me finish writing my note here. So sick day call out. What we could do is you can use either, if they've already put the PTO in and it's been approved because they have a doctor's note, we would be able to add a comment to the PTO pay code that would say sick day call out or something along those lines. And then every time that is triggered on the time card with the pay code and the comment of sick day call out, we can then track that in the attendance system. And we can notify you once it's hit. I guess it would, do you want to be notified when they hit 3, or do you want to be notified when they hit 4?
I guess I would say 3 because they're not allowed to exceed 3 instances.
Okay. Okay, we can get that added.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. All
I
right.
remember correctly, I believe it's Felicia had her hand up next.
Hey, so can you go back to the screen where you had that employee's time up and it had the early out or no, I'm sorry, it's that late in, I believe. Okay. If you hover over the little red eye, it says late in, but it's her clock in time is 6 a.m. and it's showing that she's late in at 5:45 a.m. And I'm having that problem with a lot of my staff where it's saying that they're late, but they're actually not. And I know we discussed the early out, but I'm even having that with the time frame being correct. If they're leaving at 4 o'clock and they leave at 4:01, it's saying that they're leaving out early. And so I don't want that to be an attendance issue when we start, going to or referring to points. But for some reason, it is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not late in or early out based off of their actual schedule. So is that something we can try to, if that's a glitch or what's going on with that, that is giving that notice?
Yeah, I unfortunately think it's a glitch in the system because that is not how your exceptions are set up for the in punch. It's set to notify that a punch is late in at 11 minutes or more. And that is clearly not the case here, right? They're 15 minutes early. They're being a good employee um, by being early at this point. So, yeah, I will put in a case with our support team on that one.
Okay, yes, because we have multiple employees that happens to. And if I'm trying to look at those attendance points and determining if I'm going, how I'm disciplining people, it's actually hindering me to do that because I have to go back and be like, oh, yeah, you're right. You was on time or you didn't leave early, whatever the case may be.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, I'll put a case in after this call and have them take a look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
All right, we got one more hand up. You can go ahead.
Yeah, just to piggyback on the previous question, the red icon, is it possible that it could be set up to if the employee was punching in early? For example, in this case, she was scheduled to clock in at 6 o'clock, but she clocked in 6:15. And what she's doing, especially if it's a driver and they're clocking in 15 minutes or half an hour early every day, all you're doing is taking away from our drive time. So that would be one question that I have. Maybe set up the exception to be if they're scheduled at 5, that if they clock in before 5 minutes early, that's an exception. Or if they clock in 11 minutes late, that would be an exception. So that would be one question. The second question is, when that red icon comes up, does it evidently does not assign points at that point until the manager goes in and sets a comment? And is it the comment that actually assigns the points to this exception?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, yes, we can have it flag for early ends. So do you want that to be that 5-minute threshold?
I would say that would be a good thing to do, but I would leave that open to the group, because it's a definite concern. You would have people try getting away with punching in 20 or 30 minutes early if it's not addressed daily. So I would think that would be a very good exception to set it for 5 minutes, myself. And maybe Brian McLaughlin can weigh in on that.
I'm sorry, Nancy, can you repeat that last part?
Setting up the exception, we'll say a DA scheduled to start at 6 a.m. And if they're clocking in early, say 5:15 or 5:30, 20 minutes early, all you're doing is taking away from our DA's drive time. So if you gave them a 5-minute window to clock in, if they clocked in more than 5 minutes early, maybe that should be something that we would want to flag so we could address.
Yeah, no, that's a good call out. So, that kind of, yes. So what would be ideal, and again, I don't know what the system capabilities are, but it would not necessarily prevent them from punching in, but it would prevent them from punching in without like a manager override. So for example, if we call somebody in early or they're not on the schedule or whatever it is, and they're trying to punch in and the system won't let them because they're either not scheduled or too early for their shift, that the manager could override it, like if they called them in early or whatever the case may be, but that it would generate that manager level approval. I don't know if that's possible, or just, essentially what we'd be looking for is you cannot punch in 15 minutes before or 15 minutes after without a manager override, because that would ensure that there's that touch point with the manager to verify that they're allowed to be punching in at that time.
Yeah, so
Is that something, is that a capability within the system to set those guardrails?
we would be able to essentially block them from punching in 15 minutes before or 15 minutes after the scheduled start time of their shift. The only thing with that would be there's if they try to punch in and they get that rejection, the punch is not going to go to the employee's time card. So, how do we handle that? If they are punching in 15 minutes or later, um,
Well,
that would be
couldn't,
something that the manager has to go in and then add to their time card at that point, the
yeah,
punch.
couldn't you just set the exception up where it would flag it? And on our daily responsibilities, we are checking these flagged exceptions.
Yes, we can definitely do that. So that way it's not actually restricting the employee from punching, but it is an identifier as an exception on the time card.
Yeah, I think that might be the best compromise. Just we want to make sure that we're controlling that because we want to ensure that people aren't punching in and then, sitting in their car in the parking lot for a half hour before they ever come in, because they might be in the geofence and they might be there, but if their shift doesn't start till 6, we don't want them to punch in until 6. The other piece that would be great to have as an exception, I know Betty put it in the chat, but it would be anytime an employee clocks out and then tries to clock back in less than 10 hours or whatever that DOT reset period that we want to set is, to prevent them from violating their rest period, because they're required to have a certain amount of time off the clock in between shifts per the DOT. So is there a way we could flag an exception where there can't be less than 10 hours between a punch out and a punch back in, like an end work versus start work?
Yep. So I'm looking at this piece of configuration here, rest between shifts. This one I'm not 100% sure if it will flag, but we can implement a rest between shifts to the employee's payroll. And that would essentially not allow them to punch in if they haven't had that, if it's 10 hours. If they haven't been off for 10 hours, it wouldn't allow them to punch in until they've hit that 10-hour mark.
Is there a way that we can make that position specific for drivers only?
Yes, we can. We'll probably have to create a new payroll for drivers specifically, but I feel like we have some other unique scenarios that we're talking about with drivers that they would benefit from that anyways. So I'll just confirm with Jordan and Amanda on that one. All right, it looks like Orlando, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so I do recall in when we had Paylocity that there was a picture feature. So like if they were clocking in and out of certain areas that were not like on site or in their car or from home or whatever, we were able to kind of see that photo. Is there that feature in UKG? And I'm also noticing that like on yours, how you see the little top, the little windows in the top right, when my guys clock in and out of areas that are not in those, I guess, legitimate areas, it's saying clocked in and out of the area. So I've got to click on that window and then delete that every time, or do I just keep those in there? Or what should we be doing with that?
You're talking about these little
Yes,
icons here
yes.
on the punches. Yeah, so we can remove that if we need to, if we don't want to see that every single time.
It just makes me seem like there's something else I need to do. So I'm deleting them. And then I know they come up when I put a note. So then I know that it's noted, but they're
Mhm.
coming up when guys are like out of the area or like say they're clocking their lunches. I get them on the in and out with the lunches all day because they're not, they're out on route. So it does, I guess it doesn't register that they're on site. So it does that. So I've got to actually click on that, delete it for every one of my guys every day.
Okay, and that's driver specific?
Driver and helper.
Okay. All right, yep, we can take care of that. All right, and Russell, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, I get what Anson's saying about the locking it where they can't clock in or creating that 5 minutes before 6. But on the Lowe's side, that could create an issue because we have stores that will go in at 5:30 or 5:45, do our pre-trip, and then get loaded and get out because we have contractors that are like right at the edge of our service window for that store, if not a little farther, or we're trying to beat traffic. And that would just, those stores, we would be going in and trying to correct that every day. So is that something that might be just Amazon or GE specific versus Lowe's, or I don't know. I don't know how that would work. It just seems like it'd create
That's
a
a good,
nightmare on the Lowe's side.
that's a good question, Russell. I think the answer is that it'll flag as an exception, but it won't generate any points or prevent them from doing anything. So it would create a little exclamation point that they started work early. So to just notify you of that. But if it's something you approved, then there would be no action needed, if I'm understanding it correctly.
If the schedule is written for them to clock in at 5:30 though, then they're not early. If that is the
Exactly.
expectation
Yeah,
for those locations.
right. It doesn't have to be the same time. It's based off whatever their scheduled time would be. So if you know they're going to work at 5:30, if you just schedule them at 5:30, there would be no exception.
Right. It's just most of the time our schedule's set at 6. However, a lot of these experienced drivers know their routes better than the majority of us do. And they'll come in and try and knock that out and get loaded and get out of there, depending on the customer. So it might be a case by case basis. But okay, as long as it won't prevent them from clocking in and I can change it, that'd be fine.
Yeah, and just we should be scheduling them at whatever time they're actually going to start work. So if they're telling you, "Hey, I need to be there at 5:30, not 6," then and you agree with that and you approve that as their leader because it's for a good reason, then you would just change their schedule to reflect that. So it's just you should be just scheduling them for whatever time they're actually going to work. At no point should drivers be deciding when they start work. Understanding that yes, that yeah, it's just we have to define their schedule for them, because that's why we're putting these exceptions in place, is because we want to prevent employees from deciding, when they punch in and when they punch out without us having visibility on that. We want it to be whatever their scheduled time is. So they do know their routes really well. We always want to listen to our team and react to their feedback. So if they're telling us, hey, the way this store operates, or for whatever reason I need to start a half hour early here, then that would be something that you would have to approve and then adjust their schedule for.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Mike. I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, with what Orlando was saying, is there a way to put a geofence to where they're locked into a certain geographical area to clock in and out for the day? Maybe not for lunches based off of the California rulings, but like especially like there's been cases where some people are I'm hearing rumors where you can clock in wherever you want, and it could be wherever.
Yeah, so we're actually getting ready to turn geofencing on. I have to have a conversation with Jordan and Amanda before we turn that on, but I'll be having that conversation with them this afternoon. So that is coming your way.
We had another question in the chat. Is there a way to have reports run automatically daily?
Yes, if you are, let's go take a look at that really quick. So this is in the report library, different from data views. These reports are actually exported from the system in either a PDF or Excel format. So what we can do here is if you select reporting jobs in the top left-hand corner, once you get to your report library, you can then schedule a report from here. And then let's just say you wanted to run an exceptions report and have that sent out every day. So whatever report you want to have scheduled, just select that. And then you can come in here. You can select the time frame for the report. So if you know, wanted it to always be for yesterday's exceptions and have that sent the following morning, we can do that. So you would just come in here and select your parameters for time frame, the hyperfind, which is which group of employees that you want to run this on. For this one specifically, you can select your exceptions that you actually want to report on. So let's say we don't want to report on all of them. We want to report on my early outs and my late ins and maybe any missed punches, right? So you can come in here and select that. You'll switch this to reoccurring. And then this is where you'll be able to say, okay, I want it to be daily. So you can come in here and set that parameter as well. With your reoccurrence days, you can leave it to 1 and then have your start date, and then your start time is whatever time you want that report to be sent. So if you want it to be there first thing for you in the morning, you can set that to, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever you want. And then I would just leave end date as selected for forever. That'll just continuously send you that report every single day. And then if you decide that you don't want it anymore, or if you want to, change the frequency or the time, you can always come back and edit this here. And you can also do this on, a weekly basis, a month basis. You can do it by hour, if you need to see something more often than once a day.
Nathan, you had a question?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else is having an issue, but when my employees submit PTO request for in the future, I'm not seeing it until I'm actually going into the schedule for that week. As I'm starting to schedule somebody for that week, then I see their PTO request. Is there a way that it shows up on my main screen, on my main thing when I get a PTO request, that I can go ahead and approve it or deny it? Or
Yeah, you should be getting a notification in your control center here. I'm going to have none because I'm in as my system admin, but it's this bell here. And then it would be in employee request. You should be getting those there. Do you have access to employee request in your notification center?
no, I'm not seeing that on my end. Where is that again?
It should be the bell in the top right corner, or it should be on your home screen as well. My notifications tile.
Okay. Yeah,
And this
okay, I
is-
see that here, and I don't get it in I don't have it on my tiles. Like my tiles show, right in the center, I have my notifications, but it always is like request and employee request. It's always 0. It never changes, and as I'm going in to schedule people, I'm seeing several PTO requests that are not showing on my notifications.
Okay. That may be an issue with your access setup. So this is Nathan,
Yes.
right? Okay. All right. I just
Nathan,
wanna...
I already have a task set to take a look at that when we're finished up, okay? And we'll make sure we get you the access you need.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
You got it.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, William.
All right, guys, we're getting close to finishing up here at a time. So if you have any last minute questions or anything you want to go over, it's a good time. You can just pop in with your voice. Make sure we get those answered for you.
Yeah, and I know we had a lot of stuff come in on the chat that we didn't get a chance to get to. So William, if you can help me capture this and send me an email afterwards, I can address these in an email and we can disperse that out.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll do that for you. Mike, I see your chat. We'll take a look at your permissions as well. We do have one from Allie. She says she has some drivers stuck on Central Time when they should be in Eastern. Is there a way for her to change that information?
So I would get a list of those employees over to Jordan or Amanda. They'll be able to update that in Pro. That information is actually flowing over from Pro into Dimensions here. So we'll want to make sure that the update is done there.
Sierra, I see your chat. We'll go ahead and make note of that as well. Go ahead, Brian.
Just a quick question. So the way it's currently set up structure wise is like for notifications, my assistant location managers will get notifications for their direct reports. But in certain instances, I mean, right now as a location manager, I don't get any notifications whatsoever. I guess certain things I would want notifications on and certain things I won't. But is there a way to get notifications as a location manager when my only direct reports are my assistant location managers?
Yeah, so you want notifications basically for everybody in your employee group, not just your direct reports, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get that noted down and that'll be an access thing that we need to fix for you as well. So we'll make sure that that happens.
Thank you very much. You guys have been super helpful answering a lot of questions and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help.
We got time for one more question from Taylor.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Orlando dropped it in the chat earlier, and I don't think we touched on it, but there's a pay advance feature. Is that available for the team to start using or no? We get quite a few questions about that. That was a pretty successful program that we used to have.
Yeah, so I set that up with Jordan, I believe, as a pay code that you can apply to your employee's time card. Let me just double check that.
So are you saying that that's something that a manager would have to go put in for their employee? Is the employee not able to just request the pay advance directly through UKG?
Let me follow up
My-
with, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. My understanding is this is a feature that we are trying to get it very similar to what it looked like in Paylocity, and it is being written and we'll test it. It is not quite ready yet, team. We know it's a high demand out in the field. There was a great usage of it. So my understanding as of Monday of this week, they are focused on it, working on it, and to get it to us, but it's not quite ready. But it will work very, very similar to pay on demand.
Thank you, Betty.
All right, team, any closing comments? Anything you want to check before we head out? Or are we all squared away? Well, Emma, thank you so much for your time with these guys. I know they appreciate it. All the requests you guys have made, we've made notes of, so we'll contact the people we need to contact to make sure the access is granted to those who need it. If you guys have any other questions or concerns, you can email us at the HR Ops email, and we'll make sure this video is available for your reference in the future. So give us a moment, we'll get that out to you guys. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.